If research is the fuel for your project, you have to give it a very good start. And therefore, I'd like to remind you of some of the basic methods that might help you to get your research started and structured. But before I introduce the methods themselves, let's have a quick look at what we are aiming for with our research. So, why are we doing research? What are we looking for? And what makes a really good research? Out there in the world, there are things that you and your design team knows, as well as your users. This is the obvious, and it describes the current state before you do research. Then there are things that you know and your user doesn't, which is nice because it offers you a design opportunity. But to be honest, not a very interesting and exciting one. Then there are these things that your user knows, but you as a design team doesn't. So this is your blind spot as a design team, and definitely an area that you have to look into during your research. Last but not least, we have this upper right corner here, and this is exactly what we are aiming for in our research. We want to discover the things that neither you and your team nor your user knows. This is where innovation happens and new things can emerge. But how can we get there? During basic track, you already got to know and tried out several research methods. You can do interviews and figure out what people say. You can observe and learn what people do. What Elias and I will introduce to you in our video sequences about cultural probes, mobile ethnography, and ethnography are generative tools that help you discover people's feelings, emotions, their dreams, their fears, their needs. So don't be satisfied with the obvious, the explicit and conscious. Dig deeper and discover the underlying unconscious and latent motivations behind people's actions, routines, and behaviors. If you only come up with the obvious, you didn't do a good job in your research. We highly recommend you to use a colorful mix of methods because the different approaches offer you another way of thinking and input, and thus will elicit different data and information. And through this, you really can uncover the unknown. But before you start using all these research techniques, let's have a look at 3 very basic methods that might help you to prepare and structure your research. I will talk about the charrette, a research mind map, and the what, how, who table. And I've created examples for each of these methods. The examples are absolutely incomplete and not very sophisticated, but I hope they can act as a matter of principle and illustrate how you can use the methods for your own project. My fictional challenge was how might we stay in contact with friends and family during the lockdown. I won't elaborate on the content of the post-its, but you can have a look at the examples later on. So I'll provide PDFs or just have a look at this mirror board again. Let's start with a charrette. You probably all know this method, but there are different ways of doing it. I like to do it in the very beginning of a project to discover possible research topics. And therefore I list people that are somehow related to the challenge in the first column. So if you do that, try to be very specific here and very concrete and think of the people in context. So instead of only writing down elderly people, you could be more specific and distinguish elderly living in a retirement home and single senior citizens living alone in the countryside. This will make the next steps easier and yield better results at the end. Also, don't forget to include extreme users here. So think of people that face similar situations. Just collect all these people that might be interesting and inform your project. I then picked 3 of them who I consider either relevant or people that offer me a very special view on the challenge. So select people that offer different perspectives here, not all from a similar area, because we want to open up and discover the full scope of possibilities here. Each of the selected ones get a different post-it color. Yeah, this is the beauty of working digitally. You can change colors retroactively. I then started assuming possible quotes for each of the persons. So what might the person state in regard to the challenge? Do this very structured, one person at a time. Especially in this online setting, I think structure helps us a lot to get to good results. In a last step, I tried to infer topics from these quotes. So what might be behind the respective quote? What's the underlying issue? And you know this procedure from the structured unpacking of your interviews. Remember, we met, they said, we wonder if that means. This is more or less the same procedure with one big difference. After interviews, it's really what people said. Now, in this case here, we are talking about our assumptions. So this means that this method will help you to download your assumptions, to kind of brain dump. And at the same time, you can collect a variety of users and numerous topics that you could investigate further. The next method is a structured mind map, where you start with your challenge in the middle of your board, and then you collect topics and objectives connected to the challenge that you'd like to explore further around it. Here you can, of course, draw topics from your charrette, but I suggest to first start without looking at it, because this method might elicit other subjects. And towards the end, when you have the feeling you're running out of ideas, make use of the charrette board, but don't just take the post-its, copy them so that you still have the previous work documented. If you have related topics, you can already start clustering them like I did here. In the next step, take another post-it color. I took the same orange as in the charrette, and think about who might inform the respective topics. What are people to meet or places you could visit? Which projects could you look into? What are artifacts that are related to your project and might be worth investigating? As a third and last step, think about the research methods and tools you'd like to use in order to gain knowledge about the respective topic and how you could connect with the people involved. So how can you approach people and investigate spaces, places, and entities? A fourth and optional step could be to already assign team members to certain tasks and topics. So who in the team will take care of a certain task? Who is responsible, and until when does he or she have to deliver the results? The last method is just another way of doing more or less the same thing, but this time in the form of a structured table. So first think about the what again. What are the topics, objectives, overarching research questions that you are interested in? In the next column, you collect the who and the where. So who are the people you'd like to meet? What are the places you want to visit? What objects or projects or even other sources could you look into? In the third column, you collect the how. So which techniques and tools could you use to investigate the topics in order to learn from and about the people in their contexts? What are the concrete tasks and what kind of equipment do you need for that? And last but not least, you allocate tasks and responsibilities to someone in the team and at a due date. This is more or less project management and not that much about the content itself. As you can see here, and as I stated before, I use the same color coding for all the three methods I introduce. Topics are yellow, people, places, and artifacts are light orange, the research methods and tools dark orange, and responsibilities of the team members in green or blue or whatever color it is. And as you now can see in the overview, there are a lot of recurring informations in all the three methods. But every method adds another layer of information or offers another mental access to your research planning and the topics of your challenge. So give them a try and figure out what works best for you as a team and how you could combine or even tweak and twist these methods. For the charrette as well as the what, who, how table, I created a template in Miro. So if you and your coach decide to work with one of the methods, you can just select them from the templates. Type in research or charrette or the what, who, how, and you will get to the templates. There's always a blank one without post-its and one with some predefined post-its. Just pick the one you prefer. I added as well some descriptions about when and how to use the method and some guiding questions. I didn't create a template for the mind map. This made no sense for me. I've tried out the mind map provided in Miro, which didn't work out that well for me, so I preferred working with the post-its, but figure out your way of doing it and find your way of working with it. The goal or aim should be that you have a good overview at the end. Okay, I hope this all was helpful and made the whole start of your research a bit clearer for you. And if you have questions or want more information, let me know on Monday during Q&A. Happy researching!